Rain carved thin silver veins down the windshield as Malik Stone eased his car toward the gas station awning. Headlights cut through the dark like interrogation lamps. He had just finished a 12-hour studio grind, sound still thudding in his skull, when the cruiser slid in behind him. Silent, predatory, blocking any exit. The officer stepped out slowly, hand already resting on the holster. Malik felt his pulse spike, the kind of cold, precise fear that came from knowing he fit a profile long before he spoke a word. Sirens weren't necessary. The message was loud without them. The flashlight beam hit his face with surgical sharpness. No greeting. No reason for the stop. Just a long, assessing stare that stripped dignity layer by layer. Step out. Don't make me repeat myself. The line sliced through him. The tone carried the familiar assumption. Guilt pre-assigned, humanity optional. Malik opened the door, palms visible in the wet neon spill. His heartbeat pounded harder than any bass line he'd ever produced. The officer closed in, breath hot with impatience, eyes colder than the night. Fingers brushed Malik's jacket pocket without permission. Shove. Another. The kind meant to provoke. A second cruiser pulled in. Another officer stepped out, whispering something Malik couldn't hear, but the first officer's smirk said enough. Then the words dropped, low and sharp. So you're one of those who think fame puts you above the rules. Malik froze. The officer couldn't possibly know. Not unless this wasn't a stop. It was a setup, and the night was about to split open. Malik kept both hands fixed at 10 and 2 while the cold wash of the cruiser's spotlight soaked the interior of his car. The engine ticked softly, a faint metallic heartbeat under the heavier pulse in his ears. The officer's silhouette moved toward him with deliberate slowness, each footstep crunching on wet gravel like a warning. "Driver, window down," the officer ordered. Malik lowered it. The night air slapped him with gasoline fumes and damp asphalt. The officer leaned in. "License and registration." His tone carried no curiosity, only expectation. Malik handed over the documents without a word. The officer didn't glance at them before speaking again. "You in a hurry?" "No. You look nervous." "I'm tired." "That what we're calling it." Malik kept his gaze forward. "You have a reason for the stop." The officer tapped the roof with 2 fingers, sharp and dismissive. "Reason is I asked you to pull over." The light from the gas station reflected in the officer's eyes. Flat, assessing, predatory. He scanned the interior with slow satisfaction before stepping back. "Step out." Malik inhaled, steady and controlled. "I'm not resisting. I'm complying. Just tell me why." The officer's jaw tightened. "Out. Now." Malik opened the door, stepping into a shallow puddle that soaked his sneakers. The officer immediately closed distance, circling him like checking for cracks. "You coming from a party?" he asked. "No. You smell like you've been around something." "I came from work." "Oh, you work late." The words dripped with doubt. Malik kept his face unreadable. "Yes." The officer looked him up and down again, then keyed his radio. "Dispatch, run plate Sierra, 942. Malik stood still, arms visible. A second officer leaned against the cruiser, chewing gum, eyes lazy but watchful. Dispatch responded. "Plate clean. No warrants." The officer smiled without warmth. "That's so." He took a step closer. "You had an attitude when I walked up. I answered every question." "That's not the point." The second officer straightened, interest sharpening. Malik's stomach sank. The first officer nodded toward the car. "Mind if I take a look?" "Yes," Malik said. "I do." The officer smirked. "That's fine. I wasn't asking permission." He moved past Malik, pulling open the passenger door. He rummaged through the glove compartment, then under the seat with slow theatrics. "This is unlawful," Malik said. The officer didn't look up. "What's unlawful is you thinking you get to dictate procedure." Metal clinked, just the seat adjustment bar, but the sound jolted Malik's nerves. A small crowd began forming. 2 teens, a woman holding a grocery bag, a man pumping gas. Phones lifted, their screens reflecting slivers of the scene. The officer finally stepped back from the car. Nothing in there. Interesting. He walked toward Malik, voice low. You know, people like you always think you're owed something. Malik's throat tightened. You sure talk calm for someone with nothing to hide. I keep calm because I don't want this to escalate. It already has. The officer pulled out cuffs. The metal glinted in the gas station light. You're being detained for obstruction. Malik clenched his jaw, pulse hammering as cold steel touched his wrist. The officer whispered, "Should have known your place." Phones rose like a forest of small glowing mirrors, each one catching fragments of Malik's face. The tight jaw, the controlled breathing, the cuffs biting into his wrists. The gas station canopy hummed overhead, vibrating faintly with the cold wind sweeping across the lot. Diesel fumes mingled with the metallic tang of adrenaline in his mouth. A woman stepped closer, grocery bag swinging at her side. Hey, young man, say your name. Let people know who you are." Malik shook his head once, subtle. "Not now. You need protection," she insisted, voice pitched with fear, not volume. A man nearby muttered, "If he's someone famous, that'll just make them rougher." The woman shot him a glare. Being quiet never saved anyone. The teens recording whispered between themselves. "You getting this angle?" "Yeah. Dude looks scared." "He should be." Officer Kellen Briggs tightened his grip on Malik's arm, jerking him a half-step closer. "Ignore the noise," he said, voice just loud enough for Malik to hear. "They think filming gives them power." "It gives truth," Malik replied. Kellen's fingers dug in. "Truth is what I write in my report." A second cruiser rolled in, tires hissing over the wet pavement. Officer Hensley stepped out, a broad man with a calm face that didn't match the tension in his shoulders. He walked over with an expression meant to seem neutral. "What's the situation?" Kellen didn't hesitate. "Obstruction. Unsafe behavior during a traffic inquiry. Possible concealed contraband." "There was no contraband," Malik said. Hensley kept his gaze on Kellen. "You find anything?" "Not yet," Kellen answered, emphasis pointed. "We're detaining for safety until we finish assessing." Hensley nodded. Small, reluctant but compliant. "All right." With crowd eyes watching, Kellen switched his tone to official clarity. Suspect displayed non-compliant posture. Verbal resistance. Suspicious movements. Malik turned toward the onlookers, their phones reflecting the scene in jittery frames. "I didn't resist." Kellen jerked the cuffs upward, forcing Malik to lean forward with sudden pain. "You don't talk to them," he hissed. The woman gasped. "That's unnecessary." One of the teens stepped closer, live stream still active. "Yo, he didn't do anything. Why you twisting him like that?" Hensley approached the teen. "Back up, please. You can film but keep distance." The teen complied but didn't lower his phone. Kellen pulled Malik toward the cruiser. The pavement glistened beneath their feet, reflecting blue and red pulses from the new unit's lights. A passing truck slowed, its driver gawking before rolling on. "We're taking a ride," Kellen said. "For what?" Malik asked. Kellen opened the rear door. "Obstruction." Malik swallowed hard, the humiliation sharp as broken glass. "You created the obstruction." Kellen's smile was faint and poisonous. "I'll make sure that line's in your report." The woman with the grocery bag raised her voice. "Officer, he's come. He's not resisting. We're watching." Kellen didn't turn. "Then watch him get in the car." Hensley gave Malik a long look, one that wasn't sympathy, not quite, but recognition. A flicker of unease. A silent acknowledgement that something wasn't right. But Hensley said nothing. Kellen guided Malik's head down, pushing him into the back seat with a force calibrated to look procedural while still making a point. The door slammed shut, sealing Malik inside a cage of reinforced glass and stale sweat smell. Outside, voices blurred into an agitated chorus. He didn't do anything. This always happens. Get his badge number. Officer. Officer. Kellen approached Hensley, speaking in low tones that didn't carry. But one moment did, captured by the teen's phone mic, crisp as a slap. Kellen said, "They always fold once they're in the car." Malik's stomach iced over. The teen shouted, "I got that. I got all of that." Kellen turned sharply. "Step back." The teen didn't move. "I'm on a public sidewalk. You can't stop me." Hensley stepped in again, weary. "Kid, don't get yourself jammed up. Just give space." "Man, I'm giving truth," the teen muttered, backing a few inches but not lowering the phone. Inside the cruiser, Malik's breath fogged the window. He stared through the misty blur, watching Kellen posture at the crowd, watching people argue about him without knowing his name, watching the ease with which the officer navigated scrutiny. Confidence came naturally to men protected by institutions. Malik closed his eyes. More officers arrived. 3 now, forming a perimeter of uniforms and unreadable expressions. They spoke in short bursts, coded phrases, procedural jargon that masked bias beneath professionalism. Suspect remains uncooperative. Hold perimeter. Ensure civilian distance. Through the glass, Malik saw the woman shake her head, face tight with grief she had seen too often. Another officer asked, "Transport or process here?" Kellen's answer was fast. "Transport. I'll handle paperwork at the station." Malik felt it then. Not fear, not anger, but the crushing weight of inevitability. Survival demanded stillness. Breath control. Silence where pride wanted voice. The cruiser door opened. Kellen leaned in. "Keep that calm attitude. It'll look good for you later." Malik met his eyes. "This is wrong." Kellen shrugged. "That's your opinion." He shut the door. The engine growled to life. As the cruiser pulled away, Malik watched the crowd shrink into a mosaic of lights and blurred faces, their voices fading behind the hum of tires. The live stream continued. The footage spread. But inside the car, Malik felt the isolation swallow him whole. The night had only begun to tighten its grip. Fluorescent lights flickered overhead as Malik was guided through the station, their cold hum scraping at already frayed nerves. The lobby smelled of burnt coffee and industrial cleaner, the familiar scent of places where dignity was optional. Officer Kellen Briggs kept a hard grip on Malik's arm, steering him past desks and bulletin boards as if directing contraband, not a human being. "Stand here," Kellen ordered, positioning Malik against a smudged white wall. A younger officer at the intake desk glanced up. Officer Ramirez, mid-20s, restless energy, fingers tapping lightly against the keyboard. He took in Malik's face, then the cuffs, then Kellen. Something in his expression shifted. Not recognition yet, just dissonance. "What's the charge?" Ramirez asked. "Obstruction," Kellen replied. "Non-compliance during a traffic inquiry. Possible intent to conceal." Ramirez clicked his tongue softly, typing. "Any evidence of concealment?" "Investigation pending." Malik spoke evenly. "There is no evidence. He searched my car without cause." Ramirez hesitated, eyes flicking toward Malik, then back to the screen. "You can state that formally once we begin processing." Kellen let out a breath through his nose, irritated. "He'll state what's relevant." Malik looked straight ahead at the wall. "I'll state the truth." Kellen stepped closer, voice a low warning. "Watch yourself." Before the exchange could sharpen, another officer approached, holding a clipboard. "We need prints." Kellen removed the cuffs with a practiced jerk. Malik rubbed his wrists briefly before stepping toward the fingerprint station. A machine hummed softly, the scanner glowing faint green. Ramirez positioned Malik's hand onto the glass. "Relax your fingers." Malik complied, jaw tight. The scanner beeped. Ramirez froze. His eyes widened. Then he whispered, barely audible, "No way." He double-checked the screen. The name blinking back was unmistakable. Kellen noticed Ramirez's reaction. What? Ramirez cleared his throat. His ID. It's his. Malik cut him off quietly. Don't. Ramirez exhaled through his teeth, voice dropping to a whisper. I'm a fan. I've got your last album on vinyl. Kellen's face darkened. Who the hell is he? Ramirez turned the monitor slightly, just enough for Kellen to see a familiar stage name, one plastered on billboards, playlists, magazine covers. Recognition hit like a slap. You're kidding me, Kellen said. Malik stayed still. My identity changes nothing. Oh, it changes everything, Kellen muttered. Ramirez's tone grew urgent. We need to get a supervisor. Kellen shot him a glare. No, we don't. Ramirez blinked. Protocol says. I said no. Across the room, two officers at a nearby desk exchanged glances. Their whispers weren't subtle enough. That's bad. He's huge. This'll blow up. Kellen's gonna bury himself. Malik heard every word. Another officer, Sergeant Blake, entered the room carrying a stack of reports. Ramirez flagged him down. Sergeant, we have a situation. Kellen stepped in front of Malik, blocking Blake's view. Handled. Blake frowned. Why wasn't I notified of intake? I didn't need assistance. Is he charged? Pending. Blake looked at Ramirez. Ramirez didn't speak, but his expression told a different story. Blake slowly approached Malik. Sir, were you informed of your rights? Malik nodded. I'd like to call my attorney. Blake nodded again, jaw tightening. You will. After we finalize intake. Kellen exhaled sharply, clearly annoyed at losing control. As Blake walked away, Kellen moved close enough that only Malik could hear. You think fame protects you? It doesn't. Malik's voice stayed level. I never said it did. Oh, but it does. Kellen sneered. Because now every decision gets watched. Every word gets twisted. Every idiot with a phone thinks they know the truth. That's what scares you, Malik said. Kellen stepped back, expression flattening. Truth doesn't scare me. Lies do. Ramirez muttered. Then why change the report? Under his breath. Kellen turned on him. What was that? Nothing. Ramirez looked down, fingers suddenly busy with the keyboard. Two more officers approached, whispering urgently. You hear the live stream is trending. Already. Damn. Footage is messy, but the audio's bad for Briggs. Kellen's shoulders stiffened. Malik kept his eyes forward as Blake returned. We're releasing you pending review. No charges filed at this time. Kellen snapped. He was obstructing. Blake ignored him. You'll sign a statement documenting your version of events. A copy will be provided to your attorney. Malik nodded once. I want to make the call now. You will. Kellen spoke sharply. You're letting him walk. Blake turned. Unless you have actual grounds. Yes. Kellen opened his mouth to argue, then closed it when Blake's stare hardened. Malik watched the exchange with quiet clarity. Power shifting. Not justice, not accountability, but the unease of men realizing the world outside the station was already watching. Inside that tension, a truth settled in his bones. This wasn't ending tonight. It was only beginning. When the station doors opened, Malik stepped into a wall of sound that hit harder than any bass drop he'd ever built. Reporters clustered behind metal barricades, microphones raised like spears. Camera lights detonated in white bursts, slicing the night open as if exposing something raw beneath the skin of the city. Mr. Stone, do you believe the officer targeted you because of race? Were you resisting? Is it true the department held you without charges? Why were you stopped in the first place? Questions collided in a frantic barrage. Malik's eyes narrowed against the glare. His body still held the stiffness of the cuffs, wrists pulsing where steel had bitten. He exhaled once, steady, scanning the chaos. His manager, Tasha Grant, pushed through the crowd like a force of nature. Her blazer soaked from the drizzle, hair sticking to her cheek. "Move," she barked, shoving past two reporters. "Move aside, please." She reached Malik and grabbed his arm. "You good?" "I'm out," Malik said. "That's all." "Don't say more than that," Tasha whispered. "Not yet. They'll twist anything." Malik didn't answer. The crowd surged again, microphones thrust forward. "Mr. Stone, how were you treated inside the station? Do you plan to sue? Was the officer aggressive?" Malik raised a hand not to calm them, just to claim a sliver of quiet. "I'll speak once," he said. The murmurs tapered, the air tightening. Even the rain seemed to pause. Malik stood with his shoulders squared, expression restrained but carved with exhaustion. "I complied with every instruction given to me tonight. I answered every question. I stayed calm. I stayed respectful. And I was still detained without cause." Cameras flashed. "Were you threatened?" Someone yelled. Malik didn't look at them. "You saw the footage." His tone was flat, stripped of theatrics, but it vibrated with something deeper. Controlled fury, bruised dignity, the kind of worn-out strength born from repetition. He continued, "I'm going home. That's all for tonight." The crowd erupted. Tasha pulled him toward the car waiting at the curb. "Perfect amount," she muttered. "Short. Clean. Let the video do the heavy lifting." As they reached the vehicle, a voice from behind called out, "Malik, do you feel safe?" Malik paused. Rain trickled down the back of his neck. He turned slightly. No one should feel safe in a moment like that. He didn't wait for reaction. He slid into the back seat, Tasha following. The driver pulled away as reporters shouted his name like a chant trailing off into darkness. Inside the moving car, the world finally quieted. City lights smudged across the window, blurring into streaks the color of static. Malik leaned back, breathing slowly. His throat felt tight, not from fear, something heavier. Tasha tapped her phone. "It's everywhere already. All major feeds. The audio is damning." Malik nodded. "Good. You know what comes next," she said. "Statements from the department. Half-truth. Euphemisms. Officers acted within protocol. Driver displayed uncertain compliance. They'll try to soften it." Malik kept his eyes on the window. "Let them. And the officer Briggs," she continued. "He's not the kind to lay low. He'll defend himself. Loudly. Let him." Usha sighed. "Malik, this doesn't end with you walking out of a station. This becomes a narrative. Symbol. People will want you to fight. Others will want you to shut up. It's going to get." "I'm not performing for either side," Malik interrupted. "I'm tired." She finally fell silent. The car rolled through a commercial strip glowing with late-night signage. A giant screen on the side of a building flashed sudden familiar images. Grainy cell phone footage of the stop, Malik with his hands up, Kellen shoving him toward the cruiser. Malik stared at the screen passing overhead like an omen. The audio wasn't audible from the street, but he knew the moment by the officer's posture. They always fold once they're in the car. Tasha noticed his tense jaw. "You don't have to watch that. I lived it. And you're going to keep living it for a minute," she said. "But you don't have to carry it alone." He didn't respond. When they reached his apartment building, the lobby was quiet except for the soft buzz of fluorescent lights. Malik walked in, each step heavy with the weight of public eyes pressed invisibly against him. Tasha followed partway, stopping near the elevator. "You want me to stay?" she asked. "No. You sure?" He nodded. She touched his shoulder lightly, a gesture not of comfort but solidarity. Then she walked out into the rain. The elevator doors slid shut. Malik leaned against the cold metal wall, the mirrored surface showing a reflection he hardly recognized. Exhausted eyes, damp curls clinging to his forehead, posture tightened like coiled wire. Trying to breathe, he replayed the stop. The flashlight, the shove, the cuffs, the quiet threats. The certainty in Kellen's voice. They always fold. The elevator chimed. Malik stepped into the hall, unlocked his door, and entered darkness. He didn't turn on the lights. He let silence fill the room like a heavy tide. His phone buzzed non-stop. Messages from friends, industry contacts, his mother. He didn't open any of them. He sat on the edge of his bed, elbows on his knees, head bowed. He wasn't afraid of exposure. He wasn't afraid of backlash. But a quieter fear gnawed at him. Retaliation didn't always wear a badge. Sometimes it wore silence from people who decided you'd gone too far. He exhaled slowly. Tonight was over, but the story around him had already begun spiraling into something bigger, something that wouldn't let him rest or hide or shrink. The fire waiting outside the station wasn't chaos. It was consequence. Morning arrived without softness. No sunrise glow, no easing of the edges. Just a dull, overcast sky pressing hard against Malik's windows. His phone vibrated non-stop on the nightstand, screen lighting up with a relentless stream of notifications. Headlines, mentions, statements, opinions. He didn't touch it. The only sound in the apartment was the low hum of the refrigerator and the ticking of an old analog clock he kept for grounding. Today, even that felt accusatory. When Tasha finally let herself in with the spare key, she didn't bother with greetings. "We need to talk." Malik sat at the kitchen table, hunched over a mug of untouched coffee. "Already talking? You're trending in 40 countries," she said. "Clips are everywhere. The hashtag is getting millions of views per hour." He stared at his mug. "And the department? They released a statement this morning." Tasha placed her tablet on the table and tapped the screen. A clean, polished document appeared, bland language dressed in authority. Officers acted within the bounds of reasonable suspicion. Subject exhibited uncertain compliance. Safety protocols necessitated temporary detainment. Malik's jaw tightened. "They're doubling down. Always the first move," Tasha said. "Create ambiguity. Blur the lines." Malik rubbed his forehead. "People saw the footage." "Yes, and the department is banking on enough people doubting their own eyes." He said nothing. Tasha continued. "There's more. Officer Briggs just went on local radio." Malik looked up at that. "He what?" "He did an interview." She turned the tablet around again, showing a live transcript. "He implied you were agitated, that you made furtive movements, that his priority was community safety." A sour heat spread through Malik's chest. "He's rewriting the night." "He's shielding himself," Tasha corrected. "They always circle wagons early." Malik pushed the coffee away. "He's using the same script they always use. And it works more often than it should," she said quietly. The doorbell rang. Tasha moved first, checking the peephole before opening it. Malik's lawyer, Jordan Pierce, walked in, tall, calm, a presence that wrapped any room in stern clarity. "We need to strategize," Jordan said. "Because the counterattack has started." Malik straightened. "Hit me." Jordan sat across from him. "Internal sources say the department is preparing a full narrative defense. They want to position you as unpredictable. They'll emphasize that you're a public figure with high emotional stakes. They may dig into old lyrics, interviews, anything to imply volatility." Malik snorted. "They want to turn my art into a threat." Jordan nodded. "Standard play." Tasha interjected. "We should consider releasing a longer statement. Or filing immediately." Jordan held up a hand. "Not yet. They're expecting a reactive move. We stay deliberate. Let them get comfortable." Malik leaned back. "I don't want to be turned into anyone's symbol. Not again." "You don't get to choose that," Tasha said. "Not after last night." Silence cracked through the room. Malik looked at the tabletop, tracing the grain lines with a finger. "People don't care about me. They care about what I represent," Jordan replied. "Symbols force conversations individuals can't. You didn't choose this moment." But you can choose how you stand in it. Malik closed his eyes briefly. I just want to breathe. You will, Jordan said. After the work. Around noon Malik's phone buzzed with a name he never ignored. He answered immediately. Ma. Her voice came through soft but trembling. Baby. I saw the video. Malik swallowed. I'm fine. You're not fine, she snapped. They had you on the ground like you were nothing. He exhaled slowly. I stayed calm. I taught you to stay calm, she said. Every mother teaches her son how to survive. But baby, I shouldn't still have to teach that. Not with who you are. Not with what you've done. Malik felt his chest tighten. It doesn't matter who I am. Exactly, she whispered. That's the problem. He didn't speak. She continued, voice steadying with purpose. You tell the truth. You don't let them twist your story. Silence is a seed they plant to rewrite what happened. Malik rubbed his eyes. I hear you. You better. When he hung up, the kitchen felt smaller. Walls closer, air thicker. Later in the afternoon, Malik stepped into his small home studio, the space that usually felt like sanctuary. But today the walls seemed to echo fragments of last night. Hands visible. Step out. They always fold. He sat at the mixing desk, staring at an untouched project file. His fingers hovered over the keys. No beat came. No lyric. No spark. Just the weight. Tasha's voice from the doorway broke the stillness. You don't have to make anything today. Malik didn't turn. I don't know if I can. What you can do, she said, is let this moment be real. Don't rush to turn it into art. Process it as a human being first. Malik's shoulders rose and fell with a slow breath. I don't want to be the guy who turns trauma into content. You're not, she said. But you can be the man who doesn't let silence reshape the truth. He let her words settle. By evening, news commentary hit harder. Analysts examined body cam policies. Activists commented on systemic patterns. Pundits questioned Malik's behavioral cues. One voice on TV said, if he's as famous as people claim, why didn't he say so during the stop? That's suspicious. Malik stared at the screen. There it is. Tasha nodded. It always comes. Jordan stood behind them, arms crossed. And we'll be ready. Malik didn't feel ready. He felt exhausted, bruised, human. But beneath the fatigue, something steadier formed, a tight coil of resolve. The counterattack had begun, and he was done folding. The studio lights hammered down on Marcus as he sat across from the anchor's desk, sweat gathering at the base of his neck beneath the tailored jacket. The producers had insisted on keeping him in the shadows during the pre-show run-through, as if the reveal of his face was part of the evening's spectacle. In the reflection of the dark monitor, he saw himself, jaw locked, eyes sharp, breath disciplined. The anchor, Dana Reeves, adjusted her papers. Her tone was clipped, polite, artificially neutral. When the light turns red, we're live, she said, not bothering to meet his eyes. Marcus leaned forward. Good. Let's go live. A producer counted down from behind the camera. 3, 2, 1. The red light blinked on. The theme music faded. Dana faced the camera. Good evening. Tonight we bring you a developing story that has already sparked national outrage. She shifted toward Marcus. Our guest is the man at the center of it. Marcus Kane, Grammy-winning rapper, philanthropist, and as of 2 nights ago, the victim of a controversial police stop that some say exemplifies systemic bias. Marcus, thank you for being here. Thanks for having me, he said, though his voice carried no gratitude. Carried resolve. She pressed her palms together. Marcus, you've released a statement, but tonight you're choosing to speak publicly for the first time. What made you step in front of the camera now? He didn't blink. Because silence is how people like Officer Braddock stay in power. Dana inhaled, almost startled by the directness. And you're accusing Officer Braddock of racially profiling you? Marcus looked directly into the camera. He didn't accuse me of a crime. He accused me of being black in a nice car. The air tightened. In the control room behind the glass, a producer's headset crackled with frantic whispers. Dana recovered her composure, leaning in. Some are questioning whether this was simply a misunderstanding. Emotions were high. Misunderstanding. Marcus cut in. A gun in my face wasn't a misunderstanding. Dana's lashes fluttered. To clarify, you're describing the moment he pulled the trigger halfway. You know what he said to me. Men like you don't belong out here. A hum shifted across the studio. Cameraman straightening, a boom operator pausing mid-adjustment. Dana exhaled slowly. That line isn't in the police report. No, Marcus said. It's in my memory. And it's in my dashcam footage. A pulse of shock rippled through the room. Dana stiffened. Dashcam. You're saying you. He reached into his jacket pocket. Calm, methodical. He placed a small drive on the desk between them. The metallic tap echoed. This footage shows everything, Marcus said. His words. His actions. The threat he made. And how he reacted when he realized I wasn't just some random black kid he could intimidate. Dana stared at the drive like it was an unexploded device. Marcus, you understand the gravity of releasing something like this? I do. That's why I'm doing it. The control room erupted. Muffled voices, a flurry of hand gestures, a producer darting out of view. Dana touched her earpiece, startled by whatever message she'd received. It appears, she blinked. It appears that our legal department is advising we cannot air footage without reviewing it. I didn't ask you to air it, Marcus said. I asked you to hear me. Dana hesitated. Then, would you describe what's on it? Marcus's voice sharpened. It shows a man who's comfortable wielding power because he's been allowed to. It shows a department that's covered for him before. And it shows his face when he realizes the man he's threatening is someone the world actually knows. Dana absorbed the words. You believe his behavior would have been different if he'd recognized you immediately? I know it, Marcus replied. A producer suddenly stepped onto the stage, violating every studio protocol. He leaned in to whisper something urgently to Dana, his eyes darting toward Marcus. Dana's expression changed. Subtle but noticeable. A stiffening. Retreat. When she looked back at Marcus, the neutrality was gone. Something practiced had taken its place. We've just received confirmation, she said carefully, that Officer Braddock's representatives are contacting the network. They're claiming your account is inaccurate and defamatory. They're pushing back against the framing of this interview. Marcus straightened. Of course they are. Dana's tone shifted again, this time colder, more measured. Marcus, the network has to consider liability. Until the footage is authenticated, we cannot verify your claims, and he stared at her. You're pivoting. She didn't deny it. You were fine calling this outrage 5 minutes ago, Marcus said. Now you're calling it claims. Dana held her posture. The network has procedures. Procedures that protect who? He asked. The silence that followed was sharp enough to cut glass. A voice from the control room blared through the intercom by accident. Cut him off if he pushes any harder. Legal says cut him off. Dana flinched. Marcus didn't. There it is, he said quietly. The system protecting itself. Dana swallowed. Marcus, I need to redirect. No, he said. I'm not finished. But the teleprompter suddenly jumped. A new script. A new angle. A new narrative. Dana's eyes widened at whatever she was being ordered to read. Before she could begin, Marcus spoke again. Calm, steady, defiant. Play the footage, or I'll release it myself. Dana's breath caught. The studio lights flickered, once, twice, then steadied. The red live light on the camera blinked. Then it went dark. The City Hall chamber was already packed when Marcus stepped inside with his manager, Devon, 2 security officers, and a lawyer the label insisted on sending. A low rumble of voices ricocheted off the marble walls. Press, activists, council staff, random citizens who sensed blood in the water. The council meeting wasn't scheduled to address Braddock, but the footage leak had forced their hand. The mayor called an emergency public session. Damage control disguised as transparency. Marcus advanced down the main aisle. Phones rose like a line of tiny suns, recording him from every angle. He kept his expression fixed, controlled, unreadable. Councilwoman Hartwell sat at the center of the dais, flanked by officials who looked exhausted and irritated at the same time. She struck her gavel. Order. We are not here for theatrics. We are here to maintain stability. Devon muttered under his breath. Translation, they're here to save their own skins. Marcus didn't respond. His attention was fixed on the far right corner of the chamber, where a cluster of uniformed officers stood, Braddock among them. The man's posture leaned back, arms folded, chin raised in a mask of calm superiority, like he'd been assured nothing could touch him. Hartwell cleared her throat. Mr. Kane, you have requested to address the council. You'll be given 3 minutes. Marcus stepped up to the podium. The microphone crackled as it adjusted to his height. The chamber quieted. He didn't waste time. You've all seen the footage. Whispers rippled, then died. It shows a man who pulled a weapon on me without cause, Marcus continued. It shows a man who told me I didn't belong in my own city. And it shows why he felt comfortable saying it, because he assumed nothing would happen to him. Councilman Dorsey, a man with a stiff suit and a stiffer spine, leaned forward. Mr. Kane, these are serious allegations. The department has launched an internal investigation. Marcus cut in. Internal investigations don't mean accountability. They mean delay. A faint gasp moved across the room. Hartwell shot him a warning look, but he kept going. You've protected officers like him before, he said. Everyone here knows it. Everyone in this room has heard stories about stops that never made the news. Stories that weren't recorded. Stories that ended worse than mine. Braddock's jaw twitched. Councilman Yates interjected. Mr. Kane, you're implying a pattern of misconduct without evidence beyond your own experience. Marcus turned his head toward him. The pattern is the evidence. The chamber stirred again. Approval from the public benches, discomfort from the council. Hartwell raised a hand. Mr. Kane, this hearing is not a court. We cannot adjudicate guilt. You don't need a court to see abuse of power, Marcus said. It's right in front of you. You've built a system where these men answer only to themselves. Devon shifted behind him, tense. Braddock stepped forward from his corner. Councilwoman, with respect, this is a smear job. The footage is edited. My attorney. Marcus faced him. Say the line again. Braddock halted. What line? You know which one. Men like you don't belong out here. Few people inhaled sharply. A reporter's pen dropped to the floor. Braddock scoffed. I never said that. You said it because you thought I was powerless, Marcus replied. Thought I was just another black man you could intimidate. Thought the badge would shield you. Hartwell pounded the gavel. Order! But the room had already ignited. Murmurs rising, reporters scribbling, cameras zooming. Braddock glared. You're twisting this. You're playing victim because your pride got bruised. Marcus stepped closer to the podium's edge. Point a gun at someone and tell me that's about pride. A council lawyer signaled frantically to Hartwell. She lifted the gavel again. We will recess for 15 minutes pending legal consultation. No, Marcus said. You're not shutting this down. Hartwell froze, clearly unprepared for defiance inside her own chamber. You called this meeting, Marcus said. So let's have it. On the record. Hartwell's lips thinned. Mr. Kane, you do not dictate procedure here. Then who does? Marcus asked. Because it's clearly not the people who get stopped. Not the people who get silenced. Not the people threatened at gunpoint in broad daylight. The crowd stirred louder. The council squirmed. A woman rose from the audience. Early 60s, frail but steady. My grandson was stopped last year, she said. They searched him because he fit a description. He was 12. A young man beside her stood. My brother got arrested for asking why he was being pulled over. Then another voice from the back. My father was beaten in front of our house. Voices multiplied. Stories spilled into the room like water through cracked stone. Hartwell slammed the gavel again and again, but the rhythm was drowned out by rising testimony. Officer Braddock's composure faltered. His eyes darted toward the chamber exit. Marcus didn't move. He stayed still, letting the tide swell. When Hartwell finally managed to restore partial order, her voice carried strain. This council will review the footage with legal counsel and the chief of police. At this time we cannot assign fault or. Marcus spoke over her, this time calm, stripped of fire, stripped of anything but truth. You had every chance to act before the footage. You had every chance to act after the footage. You're only acting now because the world is watching. A stark silence settled. Hartwell's jaw flexed. Mr. Kane, your time is concluded. Marcus stepped back from the podium. But before he could turn away, an officer from Braddock's cluster muttered just loud enough for the nearest microphones to capture. Should have kept that camera off, boy. The word hung in the air like a trigger pulled. The chamber erupted. Reporters surged. Activists shouted. Council members panicked. Hartwell's gavel pounded in a frantic rhythm. Marcus turned sharply toward the officer. But Braddock was already grabbing the man's arm, forcing him back, eyes wide with the realization that the last thin layer protecting the department had just cracked in front of every camera. And the entire room saw it. The courthouse hallway buzzed like a hive struck with a stick. Reporters clogged the corridor, microphones raised, camera lights flickering like lightning trapped indoors. Marcus walked through the center of it all with a posture that gave nothing away. No fear, no exhaustion, no hesitation. Only focus. Devon paced beside him. You ready for this? Doesn't matter if I am, Marcus said. It's happening. His lawyer, Pierce, adjusted his glasses. Remember, stay on the facts. They'll try to provoke you. Let them fail. Marcus nodded once. Beyond the crowd, the double doors to hearing room 12 loomed. Inside, the disciplinary board, internal affairs, and the chief of police were waiting, along with Braddock. The moment the doors opened, the volume dropped. People turned. Silence pulled tight. Braddock sat at the defense table, rigid, jaw clenched, pale around the eyes. His uniform wasn't the standard blue today. He wore a pressed white shirt, badge pinned but without its usual shine. His lawyer, a stern man with steel-gray hair, leaned toward him, whispering rapidly. Marcus took his seat on the opposite side. The air between them felt electric but cold. The board chair, Commissioner Lyell, cleared his throat. This hearing will determine whether Officer Braddock violated departmental policy and civil rights statutes during the stop involving Mr. Marcus Kane. Braddock's lawyer rose before Lyell could continue. For the record, we object to the scope of this hearing. The footage lacks full context and has already been distorted by media speculation. Pierce responded. Then let's supply context under oath. Lyell gestured. Proceed. The bailiff administered the oath. Marcus stepped to the stand. He settled into the witness chair. The wood felt harder than it should have. Pierce approached. Mr. Kane, tell the board what happened on the night of the stop. Marcus kept his eyes forward. He pulled me over without cause. He escalated without provocation. He drew his gun before I could even finish my sentence. And he made a statement that made his motive unmistakable. A murmur spread through the room. Pierce nodded. And that statement was, "Men like you don't belong out here." Lyell frowned. The board has reviewed this footage. The statement is partially obscured by radio chatter. Pierce gestured toward the screen. Which is why we've enhanced the audio. Braddock's lawyer shot up. Objection, we were not provided. You were, Pierce said, sliding a folder onto the table. A week ago. Lyle signaled the technician. The room dimmed as the footage filled the screen. Marcus didn't watch it. He had lived it. Instead, he watched the room. The frame showed the headlights, the approach, Braddock's aggressive posture, the drawn weapon. The moment his face shifted when he recognized Marcus. And beneath the static, under the hum of police radio, the words, distorted but audible. "Men like you don't belong out here." The board members stiffened. The chief of police's expression hardened, not at Braddock, but at the realization that this could no longer be buried. Braddock's lawyer stood. "This is manipulated audio," Pierce replied instantly. Multiple forensic analysts confirmed its integrity. Lyle tapped his pen. "Officer Braddock, you will address this directly." Braddock rose, shoulders tight, voice controlled. "That audio is fabricated. I never said that. He's twisting this entire incident to make me a target," Pierce countered. "Explain the weapon being drawn within 6 seconds." Braddock's face flushed. The vehicle matched the description of. "No report listed his car or plates," Pierce cut in. "Try again." Braddock's voice cracked. He looked suspicious. The word landed like a stone dropped in a still pond. Pierce stepped forward. "Suspicious how?" Braddock hesitated. Sweat glistened at his temple. "How?" Pierce repeated. "Does a man driving under the speed limit, using a turn signal, and pulling over immediately appear suspicious to you?" Braddock's jaw worked. "It was late. Dark. High crime zone. Your body cam logs place the stop 2 blocks from a gated neighborhood." Braddock's silence said everything. Then Pierce delivered the blow. "Is the suspicion that he was black? Or that he was black in a car you didn't think he should have?" Braddock flared. "You're twisting." "No," Marcus said suddenly, rising from his seat despite protocol. "He's not twisting. He's describing exactly what happened." Lyle raised a hand. "Mr. Kane, please sit." "Why?" Marcus asked, turning to the board. "Why should I sit while he lies? Why does the room get quiet when he gets uncomfortable but not when I had a gun in my face?" Lyle hesitated, because the room felt the weight of those words. Marcus continued, steady, controlled. "I'm not here for revenge. I'm here because men like him keep their badges after hurting people who don't have cameras." Braddock snapped. "You think you get special treatment because you're famous?" Marcus turned his gaze onto him. Cold, sharp. "You tried to treat me the way you treat people who aren't famous." The silence that followed was absolute. Pierce stepped in. "No further questions." Lyle exhaled. "Officer Braddock, you may return to your seat." Braddock did, but not before shooting Marcus a look that was half fury, half fear. The board huddled in whispered consultation. The tension in the room felt metallic. Finally, Lyle returned to the microphone. "This board will reconvene tomorrow morning with a formal decision. This hearing is adjourned." The gavel hit. Cameras exploded with flashes. Braddock's lawyer whispered something sharp and panicked. The chief exited quickly, avoiding reporters. Devon grabbed Marcus's shoulder. "We did what we needed to." Marcus didn't answer. Because as he turned toward the exit, he caught sight of Braddock. Face drained, knuckles white, posture unsteady for the first time. The man wasn't confident anymore. He was cornered. And he knew it. But as Marcus stepped into the crashing wall of reporters outside the courtroom doors, he felt something else settle inside him. Not triumph. Not relief. Cost. Wait. A truth he couldn't yet name. And the question lurking beneath it. What would the system do now that one of its own was exposed and threatened? The morning sky hung low and colorless over the Civic Center as Marcus stepped out of the black SUV. The air was cold enough to sting, but the crowd outside burned hot, chanting, filming, waiting. Overnight, the footage had detonated across every platform. The hearing was supposed to be closed door today, but closed door meant nothing when the world demanded visibility. Devon checked his phone, face tightening. The board moved the announcement up by 2 hours. Why? Too many people outside, Devon said. They're afraid this turns into a riot if they stall. Marcus walked toward the courthouse steps. Reporters swarmed, microphones pressing forward like steel-tipped spears. Marcus, do you expect a firing? Have you spoken with the mayor? Are you concerned about retaliation? He didn't answer any of them. Inside, the air was different from yesterday. Tense, defensive, brittle. City officials lined the hallway, whispering behind clipboards. Officers stood in pairs, some refusing to look at him, some staring too long. Hearing room 12 felt smaller today. Braddock was already there. He sat rigid in his chair, uniform immaculate, expression hollow. Not angry, not indignant, just stripped. His lawyer leaned in close, whispering in a harsh, tense rhythm. Braddock didn't react. Pierce motioned for Marcus to sit. Whatever the verdict is, it's already out of the council's hands. Public pressure will handle the rest. Marcus nodded, though his stomach tightened. I don't want a spectacle. You didn't create it, Pierce said. He did. The board filed in and took their seats with the stiff choreography of people who knew the world was watching. Commissioner Lyell cleared his throat. The sound echoed like a gavel. This board has reached a unanimous decision regarding Officer Braddock. Braddock inhaled sharply. Lyell continued, voice even but strained. We find that Officer Braddock violated departmental use of force guidelines, procedural protocol, and civil rights standards during his traffic stop of Mr. Marcus Kane. A ripple surged through the room. Gasps, whispers, a few muffled cheers. Lyell raised a hand. Effective immediately, Officer Braddock is terminated from the police force, pending further legal review from the district attorney. Braddock's jaw dropped. His lawyer shot to his feet. We object. Lyell's voice hardened. This is not a court. You may file appeals through the appropriate channels. But Braddock wasn't listening to his lawyer. He was staring at Marcus. Not with rage. With disbelief so raw it bordered on grief. Devon punched the air behind Marcus, whispering, Finally! But Marcus didn't feel triumphant. He felt heavy. The board stood to adjourn, but Braddock rose before they could leave. This is political, Braddock barked. All of it. You're throwing me to the wolves because he's famous. Lyell sighed. Officer, please. Braddock pointed a shaking finger at Marcus. You did this. You ruined my life. Marcus exhaled once. Controlled. You ruined your own life when you aimed a gun at me. Braddock's voice cracked. You don't get it. People like you. He stopped. Too late. The unfinished sentence hung in the air like smoke from a blown fuse. Pierce stepped in front of Marcus. This hearing is adjourned. But Braddock wasn't done. You think this fixes anything, he shouted. You think taking my badge changes the world. They'll replace me in a day. Security moved toward him. Braddock's breathing grew ragged, his composure collapsing. You made a fool out of me. I gave 20 years to this department. 20 years. And how many people did you hurt in those 20 years? Marcus asked quietly. Braddock's face twisted, not in rage, but in something like recognition. A mirror finally forced in front of him. Security escorted him toward the exit. Reporters pounced as soon as the door opened. Flashbulbs exploded across his face as he tried to shield his eyes. Someone shouted, Braddock, do you deny the audio? Another yelled, Are there other complaints? For a moment he looked like a man drowning. Then he was swallowed by the crowd. Pierce exhaled. One piece of justice at a time. Marcus didn't answer. He stared at the empty chair Braddock left behind. Loss flickered in his chest, not for Braddock, but for what the entire process revealed. How fragile accountability was. How easily a system cracked only when a camera caught its shadow. Devon nudged him. We should go. Press is waiting. As they stepped into the hallway, a wave of sound crashed toward them. Cheers, chants, reporters trying to form a path. The energy was electric, volatile, building like heat beneath concrete. Security formed a line. Clear a path. Clear a path. But before Marcus could take another step, a young officer, fresh-faced, maybe early 20s, approached him quickly, urgently. "Mr. Kane," he said, voice shaking. I need to say something." Marcus paused. The officer swallowed. "I wasn't supposed to see it. But last year, Braddock did the same thing to my cousin. No camera. No complaint. We were told not to push it." Marcus held the young man's gaze. "I'm sorry." The officer nodded hard. "I'm glad someone finally caught him. But..." His eyes darted toward the exit, toward the mass of protesters outside. "Be careful today. Not everyone out there is happy about this." Marcus felt that weight again. Cost. The door opened. The crowd roared, half triumph, half fury, all intensity. Devon leaned in close. "Ready?" "No," Marcus said. "But we go anyway." Security stepped forward to guide them through the masses. The chants thundered. "No more Braddocks! No more Braddocks!" Camera lights flashed. People reached for his hands. Reporters shouted questions he couldn't hear. Somewhere behind the noise, he sensed a shift. Momentum, yes, but also backlash waiting to ignite. Because when a pillar falls, the foundation trembles. As Marcus stepped down the courthouse steps, he knew this wasn't the end. It was the fire line. And everything past it would burn differently. The Internal Affairs report hits. Every camera angle, every mic feed, every civilian phone clip aligns against the officer. No ambiguity. No procedural shield. No wiggle room. The department initiates immediate termination protocol. State Ethics Board opens a misconduct file. Federal oversight triggers civil rights review. Governor issues a single directive. Due process, zero favoritism, zero retaliation. Her stance removes political friction. System proceeds without obstruction. Officer is processed, charged, and released pending trial. Media cycle shifts focus from outrage to structural failures. Legislative committee drafts mandatory bias audit requirements for all precincts. Data systems upgraded for automatic flagging of repeat pattern stops. Governor resumes schedule without commentary. Story closes on institutional correction, not personal victory.